listen. We know that. We know that people don't listen. I mean, anybody that has kids can tell you that people don't listen. But you know what people hear? People hear your attitude. People hear your commitment. And that's the type of thing that they buy. They buy your attitude. They buy your commitment. You know, I have a friend of mine. He's also a professional speaker. His name is Wayne Pickering. He's an expert on health and wellness. And he always says, your attitude will determine your altitude. I think one of the biggest questions I get from executives and from business owners is, how do I find good people? When I'm looking to hire people, what do I look for? I mean, first and foremost, what do I look for? And I always tell them the same thing. I say, when you're looking to hire people, I say the first thing you want to find is you want to look for attitude. You've got to hire attitude. Because to be perfectly honest about it, you can teach people almost anything else that they need to know. But one of the toughest things to teach is attitude. Because that's got to come from within. Attitude and commitment is something that's developed from within. And so when you're looking to hire people, you got to look for attitude. I mean, let's face it. If you have a person with a lousy attitude, and they are very skilled, they have all the skills in the world, well, you know what? That's not going to help them much, because somebody with great skills and no attitude, well, you know what? They don't use the skills. So because they don't use the skills, they lose the skills. Yet you have somebody with limited skills but a great attitude. Now, you know as well as I do that is the kind of person who will run through brick walls to learn what they have to learn. They're the kind of person that will chase you to the ends of the earth in order to develop that, in order to develop the skills that they need to be successful. And that's the kind of person you want working for you. So hire attitude above everything else, because attitude is where this all starts. And you know, one of the questions I want to try to answer for you, because this show is all about helping you to become as successful as you choose to be. And that is, where does it come from? Where does this attitude and commitment come from? And what can we do to develop this kind of attitude and commitment in our lives, in our careers, and our businesses, and also in the people we lead, and the people that work with us, the people that work for us, and maybe even in our kids. I'll tell you, that's the tough part. I mean, I'm a motivational speaker, and I have inspired audiences all over the world. Somehow, it's the toughest people I find to inspire are my own kids. You know, my son thinks I'm boring, and he says, "Oh, Dad, I've heard all these stories before," and I'm sure you folks hear the same thing. But attitude is something that has to be acquired. Commitment is something that has to be acquired. You're just not born with it. And one of the things I like to say is that we acquire our high level of attitude and our high level of commitment from the goals we establish in our lives. Again, we're talking about attitude. We're talking about commitment, the basis for everything. You know, I remember I used to work in the Garment Center in New York City. That's where I started as a salesperson, and I was a sales manager, and I started selling in the Garment Center in 1973, which is probably one of the worst periods of the last 40, 50 years to start a sales career. 1973, 74 in New York City was the height of the fiscal crisis, and right smack in the middle of a pretty deep recession. And so I was a sales manager and a salesman, and I'll never forget I had this salesperson working for me. He was one of the most depressing people I can ever remember. He didn't last very long, obviously, but he used to sit people down in our showroom, and he used to bring the line over, and we used to sell dresses. We were manufacturers. And he would bring the line over, and he'd say to a buyer, "Listen, I know business is bad, but I want to show you a few things anyhow." Now, you talk about putting people in a bad frame of mind to do business. Whereas, think about the salespeople with great attitudes, and they just put you in a great frame of mind to do business. This guy had such a hard time doing business because he was telling people right up front, there's no reason to buy. Things are too bad. And when you keep telling people things are bad, they start believing it, whether it's true or not. On the other hand, when you're dealing with a salesperson who is positive, who's always upbeat, you like dealing with that person. You want to gravitate towards that person. I frequently travel in my business, and one of the things I do is often rent cars. And there's all sorts of car rental companies, and people. There are cheap ones, there are more expensive ones. Personally, I use Avis, and one of the reasons I use Avis is I like the people that are on the phone. I like their attitude. Their attitude is outstanding. And when I talk to them, they're always informative. They're always upbeat. I remember I started using Avis because they sent me in the mail a free membership in their Avis Wizards Club, which is